hello, all you bears and lions out there. I'm Steve Meeker, and we're here visiting again today with Dr. Morrison, our superintendent. How are we doing?
Doing great. How about you?
I think we're moving right along with the school year, and
Getting close.
Kind of can see the end from here.
There you go. End is in sight.
Right. One of the things that was really nice is that the day that we had coming back from spring break, teachers were able to have a day just to get things done in their classroom, and kids had an extra day from break, and so how did that come about? What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so as we were going out and visiting with schools, talking to our principals, hearing from Communication Council and DAC, what we kept on hearing was more time, and anytime we could give more time to our employees and our teachers was something we were really trying to prioritize. So I think it was a combination of hearing that with so many families impacted with their travel plans over winter break because of that variant of COVID, hearing that they were going to take an extended spring break already, having a little bit of time that we had budgeted for inclement weather not being needed. So we had the day.
Nice.
So we just thought it would be a great way to respect our employees, respect our teachers, give them some additional time, allow our families to have a little bit of extra time for spring break. And so it all worked out. The board was exceptionally supportive, and so we were glad to be able to do it. It's been really well received, and obviously it's something we'll look at for next year as well. And the calendar is already set, but we do have days built in for inclement weather. So if we get through without a lot of hurricanes or ice or snow or whatever else, locusts might come our way, then
zombie
hopefully,
apocalypse.
I'm a big zombie movie aficionado. So, but hopefully we avoid that.
Avoid
next
that
year.
too, right?
And then that would be something we would look at doing again. But anytime we can try to give time back to our employees, we're going to try to do that.
Very good. Yeah, and it was very nice just to kind of have that day to ease in. I used it to clean many years worth of material out of my closet. So.
As I said, it's your day for which you choose to do it. And it was funny, I heard a lot of employees telling me what they did with it. And a lot of it was just making phone calls or catching up with grades, but it was just a good day for people to be able to come back. And the most important thing was for people to enjoy their spring break and not feel that on Thursday, Friday, I got to grade papers or plan. We really wanted people to enjoy their spring break. It was really needed and well deserved.
Very much so. I hear there's a bond.
Oh, good. We wondered if anyone was hearing about it. So.
You've been busy with with the bond presentations over the past few months. What kind of reaction have you been receiving?
It's interesting about asking about reaction, because as the superintendent doing many bond presentations, we're providing information, so we're not advocating. So we're going out and talking about how the bond first was proposed, the community input, the bond task force, what were the data that the board looked at, that the bond task force looked at, then ultimately what's in the bond, and then trying to make sure that people really understand the tax implication, less than a penny increase, making sure they understand about the homestead exemption, which if that passes, which it always does in the state of Texas, your values go, or your exemption goes from $25,000 to $40,000. So on a $350,000 home, that means you'd actually be paying $167 less in taxes next year than you did this year, even if it passes. Making sure that 65 and older understand that if they've filed, they are exempt. So just trying to make sure all that information, how it came about, what's in it, and then what are the particular engagements, and when does voting start, registration. It's just been a lot of information, so it's been really positive. We have been all over our great community, multiple number of different stakeholders and groups. People have expressed a lot of support, but again, when you're trying to make sure that you're doing nothing more than information, you're not really advocating, and so therefore you're not gauging reaction. But people have come up and been very supportive, and so we will see what our community says by May 7th.
You're putting it out there.
Putting it out there.
And early voting begins?
It starts on April the 25th, runs through May the 3rd, and then the last day to vote is on May 7th. And early voting, you can vote at the Lone Star Community Center, and then on May 7th there's a number of different places, including Lake Creek High School and others.
The kind of the normal voting locations.
Normal voting locations, yeah.
Okay. Well, I almost hate to ask it, but so let's say that the bond doesn't pass. So what would be the plan going forward if that's the case?
Yeah, so as superintendent working with my senior team and, with our principals, we're always thinking about the recommendations we're putting forward for the board to consider, for the community to provide input on.
Right.
But then we also have to scenario plan, and, so we have had to think about, well, what if the bond were not to pass, or what, there's 3 propositions on it, so what if, one of them didn't pass? And so we've done some preliminary investigation of that. I think the thing that is most impactful, and I always try to toe this line, because there's a lot of times when people go out there with a bond and you're providing information, and in trying to answer that question, it sounds like, well, you're not advocating, but trying to make people afraid. And we don't want to do that, but we are trying to be factual. So, for example, we are projecting that by 2030, we're going to be at close or above 14,000 students. We already have several campuses that by the end of the year will be over max capacity. So, for example, next year at Lake Creek High School, we will have modular units or learning cottages, whatever you like to call them. We will have to purchase more modular units for Keenan Elementary School, Oak Hills, potentially sooner rather than later, Stewart Creek and Lincoln. So that is something we have to think about. We're going to have to replace buses, whether it's through a bond or the operating budget, so we have to think about that. If the bond were not to pass, there are HVA systems that are going to need to be fixed, chillers that are going to need to be replaced or repaired, roofs that are going to need to be replaced.
Exactly.
And so the challenge then becomes, and when I went out, we did the operating budget conversation, we talked about how much money we've coming in and what the money's going out for in terms of positions and salaries. If we start having to build into our operating budget monies for capital expenses that right now are part of that bond proposal, it's just going to make for some very challenging situations. And then the other thing that always comes up, especially we're doing the outward community meetings, is, well, are you going to rezone? With our 10 current schools, there's not a whole lot of room except for 2 of our schools, Montgomery Elementary School and Montgomery High School. But if you start to rezone, then you're still going to have, those campuses are growing too, so that's not going to be an option for but so long. And then people, not that going to either of our middle schools or either of our high schools, or they're all excellent, but people buy for a certain school, and they buy with so to hear that they might have to get potentially rezoned, but those are options that we would also have to think about. So we are looking at all those things, but obviously our focus is to make sure that we're getting out, providing information, and then seeing what our voters are going to decide by May 7th.
We'll hope for the best. Well, going to a different subject, some people may think that it's related. Recently, people in our area, there's a lot of buzz about this, got their property appraisals, and they saw some pretty dramatic increases. I saw an elderly friend of mine showed me his. It was more than doubled from the previous year. Does the school district play any role in that process, and how do you think that might impact people's thinking about the bond?
So the school district plays no role in property appraisal or values. That is the Montgomery County Appraisal District. That is their function. We have no role in it. The school district does set the tax rate with both the M&O and the INS tax rate, which, by the way, is the lowest it's been since 2005, and also 11-cent reduction over the last several years. We're proud of that, trying to be good fiduciary officers of taxpayer dollars. We try to make sure that as we're going out providing information about the bond, that people do understand that and differentiate it. I think for everybody, that initial sticker shock of, wow, that is substantive, you notice it. I think then people start to say, well, better that they're going up than going down. And then, what we also have been trying to do is to help people understand, not that it's our function, but there are ways that people have to contest that. There are exemptions people have, so that's capped in terms of how much it can increase. And so we have certainly, we've met with the appraisal district just to make sure we're understanding of everything. And, and they've been on their own roadshow trying to explain why they went up as much as they did. It's not just in Montgomery County. It truly is. The majority of Texas saw substantive increases. And so it is certainly made for some interesting conversations for sure.
Well, I mean, I wonder if people think that, oh, well, the district's going to get a lot more money because of that. Is that what people are coming away with?
I think there's some of that, because obviously as they think about their property values going up, that means more taxes, and then that must mean more money for the school district. And, so some things that we have to remind people is that our tax rate gets compressed. And so the school district, not that it wouldn't potentially see some gains with property taxes
Right.
increasing, but it's not going to be commensurate with the rate going up.
Yes.
A lot, as you know, Dr. Meeker, a
Right.
lot of the taxes that are quote unquote for education locally do not stay locally. They go to fund education across the state. And so, we're always trying to be very informational and
Right.
very accurate about that. But we do understand why people would think, oh, that must be something that is going to benefit the school district. And then the other thing that we are worried about with is the rapid increase in the property values. It just puts us more in danger of recapture, which is something this district has had to face for several years. So as you're trying to plan for a budget, you're always trying to understand, are we going to get recaptured, and how much is that going to be in terms of money
Right.
that at some point next year we might have to send back to the state. So it just makes, for an already complicated situation, even more complex.
Well, how does our district funding compare to other districts around us and other districts across the state?
Yeah, as we've been going out, not only are we going through a bond election right now and trying to get information out about that, but we're also at the same time working on our operating budget. Our operating budget is really how we fund our essential things that we have to run our schools. So it's our employees, our teachers, how many employees, the salaries, electricity, all
Right.
those things, curricular materials. So, as we do that important work, we have to be always mindful of, all the things that are happening right now. And so, we just want to be very tight on that and let people know that, we'll provide that information and then ask questions, and, we try to provide the answers in a timely fashion.
Are we still in a situation where we're sending money back to the state?
Right now, recapture is always something that we, don't know until basically it's not like tax day where this is when you have to file and
Right.
you know how much you owe. It's always an issue. There are planning numbers that come out that we have to be constantly mindful of. And like last year, it went from, at one point we thought it could be $1 million down to nothing. And so that's always
okay.
an issue. In terms of how we compare with funding across the state of Texas, as we've been doing these operating budget information sessions both for the public
Okay.
and for our schools. We are pulling information right from the TEA website.
All right.
And on bar graphs, you can clearly see we get substantively less funding than the vast majority of school districts across the state of Texas. We get substantively less funding than our surrounding school districts, and there's a number of different reasons for that. Funding in Texas is very complex. We have met with our delegation, our state delegation, and they've been very receptive to our sharing. Are we seeing it the right way? Are these things accurate? And so at the end of the day, we get what we get. We have to be good fiduciary officers of taxpayer dollars and use it for the things that are most important, which is what we put in our operating budget. But yeah, we do get substantively less. And then things like the ESSER funding, the COVID money that came with the American Recovery Act.
Right.
Texas got $17.3 billion, and we got a very, very limited amount of that compared to most districts in the state, and much less than our surrounding school districts. So again, not complaining. We get what we get. It's our responsibility to use it well and use it wisely, but it is not without challenges.
For sure. You've been talking about the operating budget in meetings around the district. Why has it been such a focus for you?
I've just always believed that, as a teacher and then even as an administrator, I always wonder, why does the district choose to do this rather than that? And, how important is things like compensation and, adding additional positions? So, knowing what it felt like as a employee from the teacher classroom perspective, even running a school, I've always felt it's really important to have our community weigh in on the development of our budget, and especially our employees. And so that doesn't just mean letting you know the decisions. It means sharing the same information we look at in a timely fashion and trying to explain why we prioritize certain things. And so I say this all the time. The development of the school district budget is a lot like development of the household budget for most folks. You sit down, you say how much money's coming in, what are the things we have to have, what are the things we'd like to do, and then you try to make it work. So we really believe in collaboration with our employees and our community. We believe in transparency. And look, our most important priority has been and will continue to be compensating our employees, all of our employees, as much as we can so that we are competitive with all of our surrounding school districts.
Outstanding. So how's the operating budget linked to the bond, or are they linked in any way?
That, again, I think I'm using the word complex a lot. So with the tax rate, there is the tax rate for INS, which pays for previous bonds, and if the bond 2022 were to pass, it pays for those bonds. And the bond, if it passes, those monies, the bond gets passed, and what we've committed to has to be used for those purposes. It cannot be used for additional employees or raises. There is a clear line of demarcation. The bond funds go for the bond projects that the voters will vote on. The M&O tax rate, which is maintenance operations, and that does fund our daily operations. It's our employees, how many teachers, how much we pay our employees. It's the energy to run our schools and our buses and our curricular materials. There is some opportunity to use some of those funds for some capital needs. But obviously, the more we use them for capital needs, the less there are for things like salaries, for additional employees when they're needed for growth. And so it's why we try to differentiate the two things in terms of the information we're providing about the bond, the information that we're presenting for the development of the operating budget. They are linked in some ways, and in other ways they're very, very distinct and different.
So part of the operating budget is employee compensation.
Yeah.
So there have been some pretty dramatic, I would say, increases in employee compensation in the last year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
What can you see going forward?
So, obviously coming here and doing my entry plan and asking what's great about the district, I heard phenomenal employees, and that is absolutely true. We have great people, our teachers, administrators, support staff, everyone who works for our district. I mean, amazing people. Right. And then when I asked what we could do better, it was you need to pay these people because we're not competitive with the surrounding school districts. And so as we started to pull the data, that was absolutely true. So we made a commitment starting last year that we were going to, as we did our operating budget, we were going to focus on trying to bridge that gap in terms of employee compensation. Started off last year with a 2% increase. In October, it was kind of a down payment. We came back for teachers with an additional 5%. In April, an additional 3% for everyone else. And we said at that time that it was not enough, but it was a significant start to this
Moving
work.
the right direction.
And they were the most, I don't want to say generous, they were the largest raises of the surrounding area. So as we've now done our salary comps, we have really bridged that gap. There were districts that we were behind that we are now ahead. There are other districts that were ahead of us that are still ahead of us, but in every case we bridged that gap. But there's still more work to be done. So our compensation plan this year calls for $2,000 raises for all of our teachers, which is an approximately 3.5% increase from last year. An additional 3% for all other employees. And this is, again, I'm going to use the word complex, but adjustments to the boxes or salary schedules, because there are some things in terms of ways that people were brought into our district and where they were placed that we needed to fix, and our employees have been very vocal about that, so we try to be responsive to that. And then additionally, what was voted on in last month was retention stipends, and so every employee will get an additional $1,000 when they come back to work at Montgomery ISD next year. So it's time for you to reconsider, Dr. Meeker. Wow. And then based on some hard to staff, hard to fill positions, there's an additional $500 for those employees. So we are excited about that. For our teachers, within 2 years, we've been able to increase over 10.5%. And for all other employees, it will be at least 8%. I say this all the time. Is that enough? It's not. But that's why we wanted to show the development of the operating budget, because again, there's just not a lot when you take any additional revenue we're getting because of additional students and being a fast growth district, with the expenses of these raises plus having to hire additional people for the additional students, it leaves very little room. And so, but again, our priority is compensation for our amazing employees, and I'm really appreciative of the board, because that's been their priority too.
A while ago, you said we were projected to hit 14,000 by what year?
2030, at or above.
See, I still remember when we had 1,400 students in the district. So it's really remarkable how much it's grown.
It is incredible.
Now, in your discussions on the campus, I heard you talk about the total package. Tell us what that means.
So that's probably a little bit of my private sector coming in, but for a lot of times we hear about what's the raise going to be. Is there going to be a raise, and how much, without really trying to think about, well, what is the total offering that we're asking our employees to consider. because we really have been trying to listen to what are the things that our employees say are important. So obviously, all of our employees want to be treated fairly, and they want to make sure that their compensation is commensurate with our surrounding districts. So that has been a focus, and we've been trying to listen to that. Additionally, we heard loudly and clearly that employees wanted to have their paychecks twice a month. And we surveyed, it was overwhelming that that's what they wanted, and so starting in July, we are going to be doing that.
Great.
We've constantly heard about time. We need more time, more work days, more PD time that is at the discretion of the campus, not necessarily the district. So next year's calendar has that built in. Additionally, we have something that we've been focused on the whole year called Culture of Respect. And this has been a cross-functional committee of representatives from every campus, district offices, where we're really looking at making sure that the strong culture in our district across each campus stays that way, because culture is a lot like a garden. If you don't nurture it and care for it, it doesn't stay where you want it to be, and we always want it to grow and get better. So our Culture of Respect work, which will be finalized, we'll complete it at the end of this year, we'll launch it for next year, is how do we make sure that every position in Montgomery ISD feels valued and respected and appreciated? And then how, if any employee feels that they are in a less than respectful situation, how can they ask for help and support in a way that they're not thinking that there's going to be a negative repercussion? And so a great team of folks have been working on this. Very excited that it will get presented to our board in June, and then we'll launch that next year. So it is the additional compensation, it is the retention stipends, it's the additional time with our school calendar, it's the twice a month pay, it's the culture of respect. It really is our trying to be thoughtful listeners and being responsive to what we're hearing from our employees.
And that's the total package.
That's the total package.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Speaking of the board, we have elections coming up, I believe, as well.
Yes.
What can you tell us about the school board elections?
Yes, so in addition to the ability for folks in our community to go vote on the bond on May 7th, or early voting, which starts on the 25th and goes through May 3rd, they will also be able to vote for positions with our Board of Trustees. We have position 6, which is Dr. Matt Fuller, who is our current board chair, and he is running unopposed, so I kind of like his chances to win. And then we have 2 outstanding candidates for position 7. We have our current vice chair of our board, Mr. Gary Hammonds, and then we have someone running for the board for the first time, Mr. Nate Robb. You know, what I am very excited about is obviously I've gotten to know Gary since I first came as superintendent, and getting to know Nate Robb. There are a lot of reasons why people decide to run for school board. Sometimes they see it as a stepping stone for another position, or you know, there's some other reason, or they care about one aspect of the district. And these are just 3 men that really care about our district. They care about all of the district. They care about all of our employees. They want to serve, and so I just think that our voters have a great opportunity with wonderful choices, and I would encourage them to do some homework and get to know these candidates and make the most informed decision they can. As superintendent, I stay out of that. I do not endorse. You know, my role is to support whoever gets elected and to make sure that I'm giving them what they need to do the important work of a Board of Trustees.
Great. I've been hearing some talk from folks on my campus about the Leadership Academy that we just started up, and I think you've just wrapped it up, and for the first year in April. A lot of good people have been involved. I've heard a lot of great people, a lot of really great things about it. What's the district's future plans for the leadership group? And make sure they continue working on that strategic goal that promotes grow your own.
Yeah, it's so important. In goal 4, we talk about recruiting, attracting, retaining, and growing excellent people. And so, you know, people want to have growth, and so a lot of teachers want growth, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an administrative position. They want growth opportunities through professional development, or maybe leadership positions that allow them to stay in the classroom part-time and then have other experiences. And so we really want to grow our leaders in our district. Getting back to the private sector analogy, you want to have 75% of promotional opportunities done within and 25% from without on an average basis, because you always want to bring in new talent, but you want to acknowledge and reward the talent that's already in our district. So the Leadership Academy was really trying to take people who have done great things in their current role, have expressed a desire to be leaders in the future, whether that is administrative positions like APs or principals, or some other leadership opportunity within the district. And so we've taken that opportunity. We've had senior leadership meet with them. They've done things like budgeting and communications and curricular and professional development and
Really on-the-job training.
all the
honestly.
on-the-job training, and they've been an amazing group. There's been a lot of energy. It's been very exciting to be a part of it and to watch their growth and development. And then that is a commitment that we will continue to do going forward. And so that idea of professional growth systems where people really can get that training, get that opportunity. When people are considering an opportunity that is in front of them that is quote unquote promotional, I always say there's preparation and readiness, and people conflate the two things, and I find them to be very different. Your readiness is really, am I in a time in my life where I'm ready to take on this additional challenge or responsibility? I'm in a good situation with home, or I was pursuing advanced degrees, or I might be taking care of a older parent. So you might be not ready for that, and that might be a decision you hold off later, or you might be completely ready, and so you're like, hey, let's go.
Let's go.
Your preparation is, have I had the opportunities for the work, the training, the professional development? So if I were to get this position, I'm going to be ready to go on day one.
Exactly.
And so you want to have people feel very confident when they're asking for an opportunity that they are prepared and ready. And so the Leadership Academy really is our contribution to helping make sure that they are prepared.
Outstanding. Well, that leads into our next question. We've had some principal openings in the district. Can you share about the process that the district uses to hire principals?
Yeah, I'm excited about that. When I first got here, I heard a lot of, people didn't always feel that when there were opportunities, whether they were leadership, any kind of position, they weren't. There was a perception they weren't always posted, that people didn't have an opportunity to apply.
I remember.
So with Goal 4 and under the great work of our new Executive Director of HR, every position in the district is posted, and it's posted for 10 days. And we really want people to feel like if they have an interest in a position, that they have an opportunity to put in for it. With leadership positions, especially at the level of a principal or a senior leader or executive cabinet position, what we want to do is to start off that process by posting it, make sure that we have job requirements as they are defined by the state. But then the next step is, especially with principal positions, we have what are called characteristic meetings. So we go out to the campus. For elementary, we meet with staff and we meet with parents. At the secondary schools, we meet with students, staff, and parents. And we really ask the question, what are you looking for in the next principal of this building? And it's really important to hear what are the unique things to that school that people want to see in their next leader. So then we are posting the position, we're recruiting all over the state, all over the region, all over the country, quite frankly, to get the best folks. And then we take however many people have applied. In the case of, for example, Lake Creek High School, it was well over 40 individuals across the country that applied for that position. Then you match the job requirements with what we know about the school, with the characteristics, and then we try to get about 6 to 7 individuals to come in. We have a level 1 interview that has stakeholders, so at the secondary level it would be some parents, some staff, students, district leaders, and then they give input in terms of what did they hear, how did they rank order the candidates, not as they don't make the decision, but they give recommendations and input. And then we have another round, sometimes 2, depending on how many candidates get to that next round. And then ultimately, I meet with that candidate, and then currently we take them to the board for consideration. And so that is the process. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about the process. As a matter of fact, we're actually just recently this week had Montgomery High School, and several people that served on that panel took the time to say, hey, this was really a great process. I really felt like my positions and my thoughts were valued and respected, and they enjoyed being a part of it. They make for long days.
I always like being part of those committees, and I can remember about 8 years ago at the old 6th grade campus being on an interview committee, and a young man named Tim Williams came in for a position for the assistant principal position at that time at the 6th grade campus.
And you hired him?
And we hired him.
Wow.
Yes, we did. So you can thank me for bringing him into the district. I was on the committee. I wasn't the only one, but yeah, it was. We were impressed with him right from that point. So now he's going to move up to Lake Creek High School. Can you talk about Tim a little bit?
I'm so excited to talk about Tim. Tim is so respected as a principal who really cares about his community. He has amazing relationships with his staff, with his families, with his students. He leads with his core values and beliefs. When we did the surveys earlier in the year with our independent third party, there were several questions about campus administration and the way that they lead, and I remember just saying to Tim, man, with these numbers you ought to run for political office, because it was very consistent across the board, high value for how he leads, what he does, why he does it the way he does, and so he had to make a very important decision. He loved being the principal at Oak Hills,
Right.
But the opportunity to have a leadership journey that would take continuing that relationship with that community and going to Lake Creek was something that was exciting to him, and so he put in for it. And he had some stiff competition, sitting high school principals from across the country, a nationally recognized principal, but in every step of that process, he was the preferred candidate, and we think he's going to do a sensational job in the Land of the Lions next year.
I know he will.
Yeah.
I know he'll do a great job. He's a great guy.
He is.
Dr. Morrison, looking back at this school year, thinking about, we started the year kind of thinking we had COVID behind us, and then suddenly we get slammed right at the end of August. First part, I was looking back at the questions from our previous interviews, and around the 1st of September we were kind of almost reeling, and but have recovered pretty well. What sticks out in your mind about the 2021-22 school year?
So many things. I think really it is that we came into this school year with the summer, and there was lots of optimism that we kind of put COVID behind us, and with different ways to deal with that pandemic. And as challenging as last year was, I think everybody was just ready to get back and have normalcy to our schools. And so we start school, and then like right off the bat, we get slammed, as every school district did across the state and across the country, with Delta. And so we're trying to do everything we can to support our employees. We did the leave. We try to do all things to keep people informed. And then we kind of came out of that, and then so you start to see that light at the end of the tunnel, and start to feel like, okay, I can breathe, and maybe we'll get back to normal. And then just as we're settling in to think, okay, maybe it's past us, then Omicron hits. and we come back from winter break, and that is just another challenge, and so you're trying to deal with that. And so now it feels like we've kind of come out of it again, and maybe we're on the right side of it. That light at the end of the tunnel is getting brighter and brighter. So all through it, I think what I continue to just be so appreciative of is this community and its unwavering support of our school district and our employees. These are challenging jobs. Every position of Montgomery ISD is challenging on the best of circumstances. With everything we've had to deal with the last several years, it's become even more pressure, more stressful, and our folks are just, every day they come with a how I can, not why I can't attitude, and I never take that for granted. I was 2 weekends ago, I was asked to present at a national superintendent conference, and so just getting a chance to listen to folks from all over the country and what they're dealing with, and what we have here is very special, and it's not all over our country or even our state. So I am so appreciative of the leadership of the board, the demeanor and professionalism of our employees, and a community that really supports us. We have our challenges, but how we treat each other and the way we collaborate and ultimately try to serve all of our students is what I always think about, and I am just so grateful as the superintendent.
Great. Well, we were down in our last 6 weeks now.
I know.
Coming to the end of the school year, and so what final words do you have for teachers, students, parents, everybody in the community going forward?
Well, before I do that, I get to ask a question, because I understand, Dr. Meeker, that you might not be at Montgomery Junior High School next year.
That's correct. After 42 years, I'm retiring, and it was not an easy decision, but I still feel like I'm doing as good a job as I have ever done, and that's the way I want to end. I don't want to go into a slide, and so haven't really thought too much about what I'm doing. I am a co-host of a podcast that I enjoy doing, and so I'll be spending some time with that. It's called Remnant Stew, if you don't mind me putting a plug in.
Shameless plug. Don't mind that at all.
And so it's really fun, about interesting history and science information. Yeah, it's 42 years, and 18 of those have been in Montgomery. Another 12 were in Conroe, and then I had 4 years I taught actually in the prison system in Huntsville, and then I was out of state for 8 years as well. So I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I have had, and really grateful for the people of Montgomery. My original hometown is Kerrville, but I think my hometown where I really feel a home is in Montgomery.
So you talked about leaving on the top of your game, and I think we all, those of us that are passionate about sports, and you have
Right.
that quarterback that wins the Super Bowl, and you're always like, is now the time to go, because
Right.
you just want them to go out on top. Dr. Meeker, I say this all the time: your brand isn't what you say you are; it's what people say about you. And what people say, your colleagues, your students, this community, is you are that Super Bowl winning quarterback, except you've been doing it in the classroom. And your love of this profession, your respect of this profession, your care of students, how you have contributed not just to educating so many students in our community, in our state, but just the respect and professionalism that you demonstrate every day. It has been a joy to come and visit your classroom. It's been a joy to be a colleague, and we're not going to let you get too far, because
Right.
I think you're going to be bad at retirement, and so we're going to have other things that we're going to ask you to do, because in your heart you are a servant leader, and we're going to take advantage of that. But thank you for your many years of service and for what you've done for Montgomery ISD.
Well, it's very nice of you to say, and this is really where my heart is. I love teaching. I feel sorry for anybody who's not a teacher, honestly. It's just a whole lot of fun. It's work, it's challenging, but it's a whole lot of fun to come and spend my day with kids. And thank you for sharing your kids with me.
So in terms of your question, I'll come back to it. My final thoughts are, look, we have had a great year in Montgomery ISD. It has been challenging, it's been stressful, but we're in the final portion of the year. We're going to get through state testing, and then everyone's going to get an opportunity for a really well-deserved break. Let's finish the year in an outstanding fashion. Let's do it together, as we always do. Let's then take the time over the summer to recharge and rest and come back roaring next year, whether you're a bear or a lion. And just so much appreciation for what every one of our employees does on behalf of our students. We are so blessed in this community to have the employees that we have, the community support that we have, and the students that we have. So I'm looking forward to having an amazing conclusion to the school year, and then having everyone have that opportunity to rest, relax, and recharge, and then it will be on to 2022-23.
I'll drop in and see you from time to time.
Oh, we're nowhere to find you, I promise.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you all for spending time with us today.